Welcome. I'm John Martin, your host. Excited to be here today with my friends Michael and Selah Hirsch.
Yes, we're so excited to be here, John. Thank you for having us.
John, this is an honor. Thank you so much for having us on the show.
Oh, I'm so excited. This is a lot of fun, and y'all are new good friends of mine now, as we have several mutual friends, and so thankful for Brian Chu introducing us.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've known y'all like 20 years or something. It's really only been a shorter time, but y'all have moved here to Miramar Beach, which is exciting. Why don't you just give us a little bit of background on y'all?
Yes, well, thank you, John. Yeah, and thank you to Brian too, who helped to cross our paths to meet you. And it does feel like that we have just been lifelong friends, and looking forward to this conversation. So, Selah and I and our family, we just moved here a couple of months ago. So we are brand new here on the Emerald Coast. Okay. Moved here with our 4 kids. Youngest is 2, oldest is 12, and since we've been here, I've had the opportunity to just feel super fortunate being able to connect with such a incredible just men and women just of God that are really just pursuing His heart. And so we've just been able to make such great connections since we've been here. My background is in nonprofit leadership, starting various nonprofits and working with churches, and then look forward to doing that while I'm here in Miramar Beach.
And my background is in brand development, and so I love working with leaders from nonprofits to companies, even personal brands, helping them articulate their vision and communicate their value with confidence. And so Michael and I have come here with just a God adventure. We felt the Lord told us earlier this year that I'm calling your feet to be here. I'm calling you to bring your family and plant it here. And so in a nutshell, we've just been on a big God-sized adventure as a family. And I truly believe Jesus lives at the beach is what I tell everyone. Because you can feel His presence just staring out at the ocean. But it's obviously led us through the power of relationship to connect with you today.
Wow. Well, and when I found out y'all had this book called Pressing Pause, I'm going to show it to everyone here. It's just a must read. I started reading it, and I was like, wow, I'm so passionate about this topic. That's why I wanted to get y'all in. I was like, no, this can't wait. This is a important topic to everyone today. And we have 4 kids also, so it's like, especially when you have children, but it's just really everybody in life is so tired, weary, just worn out, and they're just trying to keep up with things, even retirees. I find. So talk to us a little bit about the book, and why'd you write it? What stirred you to write this book?
Well, we definitely are in a Western culture that never stops. And I think that's what you're talking about. It doesn't matter what season of life that you're in, from college students trying to, work through degrees to, us with preteens and diapers all at the same time, to people who are slowing down or pivoting and transitioning in life. The culture we are in, though, tells us never stop, or we feel compelled to never stop. And it ends up, I think, creating what I started to realize in of myself, John, is that I'm wired and tired all at the same time. In fact, I used to, and I still wrestle with a little bit sometimes, I think almost that whole, I'm so busy, I've got so much to do, is almost a way of seeing my success and my significance in that, and I see that more with eyes wide open as the Lord is continuing to open our hearts to seeing the gift of Sabbath that He created for us as a manufactured, man-made way of significance, and not God saying, you are my beloved, this is the way for you to walk. And so I think that this conversation today, for anyone who's listening today, if you are in a place where you have been told, you've got to just kind of hustle nonstop, or the more you do and only what you do is your measure of significance, or you just feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, maybe it's not even the demand of your schedule, but it's parenting or dealing with a relationship or finances. And again, just pressure. We live in a world that just, I think, is such a pressure cooker, and we can internalize that when the Lord has said, I've given you this gift of a time of Sabbath, a weekly time to press pause and come to me. And if you lay your burdens at my feet, like, I am here to carry them for you. And I don't know, I tell you, I don't know, maybe it's just women I work with or women in business or mothers, but I don't know, but I feel like it's like, we call our groceries arms. Like, we got to hold it all together. You know, we've got to get it all done. We've got to make it to the next day. And the Lord is saying, like, lighten your load. Come and find rest in me. And that is our journey. Our journey is being a high, ambitious, you know, husband and wife. You know, Michael and I are both wired to go nonstop, but we were learning that is who God's made us to me, but we were not meant to run like on empty forever. We were meant to walk in a rhythm of Sabbath and partner with the Lord. And that rest has shaped our marriage. It has radically revolutionized the culture of our family. And I truly believe it's changed the paradigm, which now we see that we work out of rest instead of just from a place of nonstop hustle. So that's the conversation that we're having today.
Yeah, we call it a series of spiritual breadcrumbs that God placed across our path. So this is happen all at once. But God just used people, He used ministries really to be able to introduce us to Sabbath. And we write about this in the book, but really what sealed the deal for us was an unexpected trip that I was invited to take to Israel a little over 3 years ago. And so it was through that experience, I'll never forget being at the airport in Tel Aviv and beginning to unpack, you know, what I had experienced. And this was on a Tuesday, and I said, Selah, I said, get ready, because when I get back this coming Friday night, we're going to have our first Sabbath dinner, our first Shabbat as a family.
I didn't know what that was. All I know is Michael was coming at me pretty locked and loaded with something he was excited about. I remember my words to him were instantly like, okay, this felt like just one more thing to do. I mean, I sounded exciting, but like felt like one more thing after probably a really full and busy week. And I remember I spouted off to him. I'm like, that's fine. Just keep it simple. So you can read about the story in the book, because he definitely did not keep it simple in the beginning, which is part of I think the joy that we've had to learn of adapting, you know, a Sabbath lifestyle to our family and to our lifestyle, which we truly believe is different for everybody. But this conversation is for everyone listening today. Again, regardless of season of life, whether you've been to Israel or not, whether you practice, in a certain way or not, the whole point is that it's a gift that we never knew that we needed.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel like that the Sabbath day of rest is something we're doing for God, like we're doing it for Him, but no, it's a gift for us, right?
Right.
That we need that reset. And a lot of, I think, Christians believe the Sabbath, that they kind of think of that's just a Jewish thing, really, because unfortunately for Christians, we've kind of done away with the Sabbath. You know, 'cause in this country, it used to be that people took off Sunday, and there was no businesses open on Sunday. People didn't work on Sunday, and that's been gone out the wayside for many decades now. So talk to a little bit to the Christian viewer that is like, well, isn't the Sabbath just a Jewish thing?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so over the last few years, it's almost as if, Selah mentioned Sabbath being a gift. And so the way that I like to describe it, I feel like I won't give away my age, but for 40 plus years that I've had this unopened package, gift wrapped, that I've been carrying with me. And then I mentioned, there were these divine moments that God orchestrated over a series of years, and then it was in Israel where my eyes were opened, and we like to call it this gift. And so for 40 plus years, it's like I had this gift that I had not yet opened. And then when I began to see just God's word in a whole different way. So for example, I love to look at the New Testament and Jesus, and he calls himself he's the Lord. He says, I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. In Matthew, he said, I did not come to abolish the law, but I came to fulfill it. And in regard to Sabbath itself, I like to look back at a time in the Bible that predates Judaism, which is in Genesis 1 and 2, God's creation account. And so while the Bible doesn't say Sabbath, but it was God who set a pattern for us of rest. And so that's what we began to take a closer look at. God, our creator, who sets a pattern for us, and this rhythm was important to if it was important to God and us being made in his image, hopefully it's going to be important to us. And so that's where, at least we started.
Yeah. I remember after walking with the Lord all these years, my eyes were so surprised to see that it was in the fourth commandment. I remember when we talked about it and we were unpacking this a little further, it's like, I've kind of forgot that was in there.
This is in the Ten Commandments.
And in my mind, it just lived, first of all, it wasn't even on my radar, because when you drink, just coffee and run all day between Zoom meetings and kids and life, you're not necessarily thinking of rest. And that's why I think the Lord was like, I'm going to open your eyes to see that I had it in there, truly, at the beginning. And I kind of took a moment, even in my Christianity, to go, oh, wow, like we kind of went from like, thou shalt not murder to like, honor your parents. Like I completely didn't see it there. And I think that was just a good way for us to go, you know what, this isn't just for a certain culture. This isn't just for another place in time, but this was designed by the Lord to truly renew us, to reset us. I love that word that you said. And I don't know about you, but I think I used to look at rest as weakness. You know what I mean? At least if anyone's wired like I am, full drive, it's like, you shouldn't need to rest, or, and I feel like the Lord has begun to tell us this, and we put this in the book, that we are learning for us that rest is not weakness, but it is wisdom. And our God, he says to pray for a gift of wisdom. The Bible says to call out for wisdom, and that is something that we're just opening our eyes to see, Lord, you've put this there. This is what we needed. This isn't a weakness place. This is a partnership with you. In your weakness, I am made strong. And I truly believe that the more we've been able to see that it's in the Ten Commandments, it's right there. And the Lord's like, I knew you would need this because you would operate by your own strength. But when you operate and walk with me is where you begin to see the abundance of the gifts I have for you. And I'll tell you, if someone is feeling right now, maybe if there's a measuring stick we could have, if you could buy this measuring stick from, Home Depot, and it would say, here is depletion and here is abundance. You know what I mean? I think we would all say, like, where do I fall on this? Mm-hmm. And maybe it changes day to day sometimes too, based on everything going on. But I feel like the Lord is like, I have called you to lead an abundant life with me. And therefore, I am not asking you to operate by something that is not relevant to who you are now. And so I think, again, you can ask yourself, am I in a place of depletion and exhaustion, out of a place of, a scarcity, am I operating in a place of peace and of joy and of abundant living? And that right there is a conversation I love to have with people, because then it doesn't mean that it's just for one person or for another, but it's truly the gift from God.
Yeah. I've thought a lot about, because I'm passionate, I've seen the blessing by taking the Sabbath day. But I find that we in the West, a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and executives, we want to compromise with God on that. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to a trust issue. Yeah. Because most people don't believe, hey, like I can truly take a day off. If I'm like a business owner, I've got to do all this. And like, for instance, as a real estate, I've been in real estate, and like you'll take that day off, but then you'll have someone call and say, hey, I want to see property that day. And then in my mind, I'll start compromising. Well, I'll take off half of the day tomorrow. And then you start doing it in quarters, and then you're negotiating minutes and stuff of, and it really comes down to trust. I feel like you've just got to trust that, hey, if I'm taking this day off and a multi-million-dollar buyer comes and I miss that buyer because I'm taking that day of rest, that God's going to bless me with another buyer.
Right.
And that's I think most people have a challenge with that. They're like, no, you don't do that. You work and you take off a quarter day the next day, and so that's the world that we're in business in this country. is we're compromising with God all the time and saying, I can't do that because I've got this job that doesn't allow me to take the Sabbath. Any comments on that?
I think that what you're talking about probably needs to be another whole book, though, because I understand what you're saying actually very intimately, because I was raised by small business owners who were in the real estate industry, and I understand those calls can come all the time and how responsive you need to be, and how many people are listening today who are in jobs, that are in high demand. I know I'm a small business owner and I don't have any set schedule. No one else is coming to do the work, so to say. And there are nurses and doctors who are on call. And I think the biggest thing I would say is to start where you are. I think that, to your point, John, you make a really bigger point of conviction, which is not to compromise and negotiate with God. But I think sometimes, there's 2 points to it. I think, first of all, Michael and I are really on a mission to help people start, and so we tell everyone, start with where you are. For us, it was starting with our Friday night, and beginning to build to a place where we were able to grow in our trust and surrender. Sometimes I feel like we force ourselves into trust and surrender, but then that's where our humanity needs to walk in a place of surrender to the Lord. And that is then, I think, a more mature journey of Sabbath, is getting to that point where you're realizing, what, just as I'm called to tithe, just as I'm called to love my neighbor, just as I'm called to be a light in the darkness, I'm called to trust God in this way. And so I think if I could speak practically, it's okay to many of the people who are listening today, is if you are not practicing Sabbath, start with where you are. Find in your heart the place that God is calling you to meet with Him, and block it off, and expect every phone call to come, expect every meltdown from a child to come. We tell everyone, there's a whole chapter in the book, the resistance is so real. Start there and allow that to build your faith in God. And I was actually on a walk yesterday. I don't know if I told you this or not. And I didn't take my phone with me, which is amazing. And I was just praying through a few things. I asked the Lord, increase my faith, and I can't just force it. I can't just force it. I'm going to believe God for everything today. But let me take a minute and let me rewind where I'm seeing your faithfulness in our lives. The tiny little things that no one else would know and really doesn't even so much matter, but it matters to me. And as I took a moment, I was walking with our 2 dogs, and they're intense. They're dragging me down the road. People are probably like, what's that woman doing? I'm sitting here just calculating, back and going, you did this and you did this. And now I'm going to surrender this piece to you and surrender this piece to you. So I think that surrender piece, it comes when we become even more fully aware of His goodness to us. But that's a real human piece, especially for the entrepreneurs here today.
Well, how do you recommend people get started, in a sense of, because a lot of our listeners are believers in Jesus, Christians that go to church on Sunday, typically. So do you recommend? Does it have to be a particular day, or because I know Sabbath in the Jewish world is Saturday, So how do y'all recommend? Is someone that's looking to start, and we could tell them read the book, but
let's tell them. Let's give them a little clip of it.
No, it's good. So I want to share a verse that's a big verse for us, and we call it the assessment in Matthew 11 in the Message version. And we'd encourage anyone that's listening or watching this episode to take this assessment. And in Matthew 11, Jesus says, "Are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion or life?" So a few years ago, I would have raised my hands to all 3 of those questions. Maybe just internally, I don't know if outwardly I would have admitted to that.
That's good. Yeah.
Where pride can just get in the way. But ask yourself those few questions. And then he goes on to say, "Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. And then I'll show you how to take a real rest." So I think anyone that's listening or watching, if they answered yes to any of those 3 questions, we would really encourage them to just consider starting. Mm-hmm. And don't do what we did, but keep it simple.
Yeah. It's definitely so many ways to keep it simple.
We would encourage a Friday night. At the same time, we would encourage an evening that works best for you. The one challenge that I would have is to turn it off.
Yeah.
And what I mean by turning it off is your technology.
Yes.
And just to give that a chance, I just recently read before this conversation a C-suite report that said 7 out of 10 professionals admit that they are unable to disconnect.
Yeah.
I actually think that number's low, to be honest with you.
I thought so too. I think it's 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
But they went on to say, and at the same time, even when they take a break or a vacation that they're not able to disconnect even while they are away.
Yeah.
And so that's a big one for me. I think the disconnecting from tech maybe comes a little easier to me than it does for you on occasion.
It is, yeah.
But I think that's an important step. And basically what we're saying, and I think this is important in the book, and we hope that our readers or listeners of the book will catch the spirit of this, is that we would champion that our Sabbath and Shabbats, it's not about Michael and Selah time. It's not what we're saying. But we're saying, God, this is now you. You know, in the very beginning, you know, when you said you rested, he called that time not good, but he said the seventh day, he called it holy. And so begin to wrap your mind around that prayerfully. That's really powerful, to just posture your heart of, okay, I'm going to pick a day that works for me. And even if it's for a half an hour, an hour, an evening, I'm going to disconnect, and I'm going to, John, you touched on this earlier, if we have trust issues, we're just going to say, okay, God, Proverbs 3, I'm going to trust you and acknowledge you in all my ways. I'm just going to give you this time at the table, and you have your way. And get an opportunity to be able to experience his shalom and his peace is so powerful. So that's where I would.
And what does that look like? Let's make it practical for a minute. You know, for a family like us, we love having our Friday nights for Shabbat, and that's our Sabbath is primarily our Friday nights. It does adjust or move around based on maybe travel or some, you know, other scenario. But to your point, it is now built into the fabric of our family. And so it's something you have to start. And to Michael's point, I'd rather you start small than start too big and too fast and burn out or lose sight of the real why. And I truly believe you have to experience the table. You have to come to it. And so for us, it's Friday night, you know, right around dinner time is when we power down. Again, Michael's really good at powering down. I'm a more like checking all the emails, sending all the things, you know. But nonetheless, there is an activation, I believe, in the spiritual realm that happens when we put our physical at a place where we say, you are now put at bay. The chaos of the world can wait. The demands can wait. I'm drawing to the table because we know Jesus is at the table. And so we come to the table as a family and we begin a practice time, which takes us about 15 minutes or so. It's not formulaic. It's not rigid. I call it, it's like the landing gear of like all the humanity and the entrance into the time with Jesus is what that does for us. And we outline it all in the book. It's simple steps to start. Do you mind if I run through them really quickly?
Yeah.
So Michael takes a moment and he does a devotional with our family. He just takes the time to share, like whether it's just a word the Lord put on his heart or something he read or something maybe we were discussing or a challenge we've been walking through as a family, just a way to kind of say, let's take a moment, let's open the Word of God, you know, and again, a few minutes begins to transition our physical. It's like there's things happening simultaneously as he's sharing that our focus is beginning to turn, you know, to the Word, to the Lord. And then we light the candles at the table, and we light 2 candles and typically play a worship song. And that's a moment, I feel like I take this giant breath. It's probably the one and only biggest breath I take all week, to be honest. And there's something about the candlelight. We call it the light of Christ. And it just changes the atmosphere of the room. And we just light our candles on the table. And then comes, I think, what is probably everyone's favorite moment, which is the blessing. And it's where Michael, as the head of our household, walks around the table and he blesses each of us. And we call it developing a blessing radar. And so throughout the week now, you just kind of consciously and subconsciously are looking for moments to call out, you know, the goodness in us. And, you know, hey, Anchor, I saw you react this way, you know, to this disappointment. And I saw you overcome this challenge. Or Naya, I noticed the other day when you shared, you know, this word of encouragement to someone, you know, who, and it's whatever, and I see the way, and he does it for me too, and how we kind of make eye contact. And a lot of times, I don't know about you, but when you're running around and you can feel like your ship's passing, you know, in the day and in the week with your spouse or with your kids, and you're more managing life, like that's a deep sense of connection. And that, like, whatever, 20, 30 seconds of you blessing each of us, like it's a deep well of deposit. Wow. And then the last step of our practice is where we take communion. And we have the bread and the juice. Some families do the bread and the wine, you know, and we just take a moment and we acknowledge, you know, the sacrifice of Christ over us and how the blood, you know, and the forgiveness of his sacrifice covers us as humans. And then we enter into dinner from there, and we call it dinner and linger, where we just lose ourselves then. And I feel like at that point, I have slowly let go of so much of the, you know, gotta do this and shoulda do this and how about this and I just feel like suddenly I'm in a place of present with my family and in the presence of God. And that begins then an evening where we are just able to talk and connect and laugh and linger in any which way, shape, or form maybe that evening holds for us. And I'll tell you, I sleep deeper that night than I think I do any other night of the week. I go to bed, just more in a state of gratitude. You know how like gratitude, you can be going through the hardest things in life. We have walked through definite hardship seasons, but I'll tell you, when you're able to hold like gratitude and find peace and see that it's in the presence of God, like that right there is, I think, more than anything money can buy. And so that right there is the deepest point of container of Sabbath that has really impacted us. And then you can, yes, take it further into a place, of up to, the 24-hour mark. But I encourage you that is possible any season of life, whether it's pizza, Domino's pizza at the table, or you make a nice fancy meal, whether you're by yourself or with your spouse or with friends or your family, Sabbath is a gift for you.
And while sounding tranquil
Yeah.
and serene, not easy on Fridays to get to the table.
Yeah.
And so what y'all are saying is just start, like,
Just start.
and like you're doing this meal, but then and then you could also continue it through Saturday as your Sabbath day, but
Yeah.
you kind of started
Yeah.
with the meal and
Yeah.
and for your family
That's
now.
really the core where we've started to come together. And to your point,
Yeah.
let me definitely tell you, in fact, our last Friday night was anything but peaceful. Our 2-year-old, I don't know what what lollipop he found, in the corner of a diaper bag, but I mean, he was bouncing off the walls. I think I burned half of dinner. I think, just there was, the doorbell rang. I mean, it was just like, okay, we're fighting to hold peace at the table. And so that's what's beautiful. Every Sabbath looks a little different. I think what we need is a little different, but Jesus is always present in there.
And I think that was a testimony of the fruit of the Spirit in our lives and the work that He's done.
That is true.
Because I don't think we could have handled last Friday 3 years ago.
Yeah, you stayed
I
more
would've-
calm than I anticipated you would have ever
The
stayed.
veins were not sticking out of my forehead.
I definitely know I need this for my family because we have a hectic family with 4 kids as well, and I relate with everything y'all are saying. So I'm looking forward to doing this myself.
Good.
So folks, once again, we're visiting with Michael and Selah about this book, Pressing Pause. It's such a blessing that they've written, and one of the things that I love so much, but that y'all wrote in here that just really got my attention is where you're talking about your kind of an intense season in your work with the nonprofit, and a friend had asked you if you could just take a few hours off with them, and you just listed all your responsibilities, commitments, and he simply asked, do you believe you're more necessary to God's work than God Himself? And I was like, wow, that to me was that. I'm not sure which one of y'all that was, but
Well, probably both of
Yeah,
us.
we both
but
had
in this
this one.
particular,
That was you.
that was me. Yeah.
but that to me is
it's
just
true.
such a profound statement in this book
Yeah.
that I feel like a lot of people believe is that they're more necessary to God's work than
Yeah.
Himself. That they can't even spare an hour, a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And wow, I just really, what a blessing. Thank y'all so much. Is there anything else that y'all want to add before we go? That, from the book, or just anything we want to share?
Yeah, if I could share a last word, it would be to encourage those that are listening and watching to be expectant.
Yes.
I like to talk about or ask the question. When you think about the work and we're doing great work. We're all doing great work. We're working hard. We're putting in lots of hours. But I think the question is, are you resting from work, or are you working from rest? Are you resting from work or working from rest? And so, I think if you find yourself that you are, working from rest, I think come expectant with what Sabbath, has to offer. That you have the opportunity to be able to come out of this time, that you entrust to God, you learn how to take a real rest. And one of the rhythms that we talk about is this, we call it activating purpose. And to be expectant that when you come out of a few hours, or when you come out of a full day, come expectant. with God to infuse innovation, creativity, and wisdom and ideas, extra grace. If you happen to be married in your marriage, if you happen to have kids and parenting your kids, just come expectant. And it goes back to trusting, trusting God to have your way. But remember, in the beginning, I'm not the creator of the heavens and the earth.
Yeah.
He is. And God, and we've been talking a lot about rest, but while God set a pattern for us of rest, he also loves work.
Yeah.
And so I believe that's a last word that I like to share.
Yeah, and I think for myself, I'll say, ironically, I think a lot of our message is reaching a lot of people who are high achievers, and sometimes they're like, I'll do it when I can do it just right. You know what I mean? Or like I've got to learn how to do it and then I'll implement it. I think we learn that a lot of times in strategies and systems and things. Well, as hard as it may be for you, or as maybe as freeing as it is for you, I tell people just start where you are and let it be messy, and don't feel like you even have to have read the whole book to start. Like literally turn off your phone for whatever it is, an hour, start there. An evening would be the best thing, and just come to that place where you can be present and you don't have to worry about feeling like, did I do it right? Did I check all the right boxes? I think that's what's so ironic sometimes is even in a place of rest, we feel like we have to do it just right, and I don't know why I feel that way sometimes, but I have been surprised in some of our conversations with people that there's just maybe a freeing moment to say, you know what, the Lord has called us to come in who we are and in that very moment. And so, should that cause, maybe emotion in you, should you feel like, maybe there's a place to release that before the Lord, if there's just a place to come with gratitude, and whether it's brokenness or beauty, the table is there for you. And don't feel like you've got to figure it all out to do it. But I truly believe this is a taste and see that the Lord is good. Not a figure it out that the Lord is good, not do all the right things and then the Lord will be good, but a taste and see. And so, again, whether you're walking with the Lord, whether you're new with the Lord, whether you've been, in a place of just, hungering for more, more of Him, whatever it is, I truly believe that He will meet you in your Sabbath moment, and in Him you will find that He is good.
This has been so good, folks. We've been visiting with Michael and Selah Hirsch. This book, Pressing Pause, it will bless you. It's blessing me because I really need this in my life. I've been so blessed by this conversation. I know it's going to help a lot of people. And before we go, we always like to remind everyone of our 3 pillars of Road to Redemption. Is first, to get into the Word of God, to read the Bible. Start just reading the Bible every day. Get up in the morning, turn off your phone, press pause from your phone and read the Bible, and we promise He will speak to you. And the next is to get into a Christ-centered church and just go. You're never going to find the perfect church, but go. And the church, people are going to welcome you. They want you to help bless you and come together in community. And the Bible calls us to do that, to assemble together. And last is to get into a small group. Get into a group that you can make yourself accountable and do life with. And these folks are going to come behind you and help you through what you're going through. So it's been a great conversation. Wow, this has really blessed me, and I know it's going to bless a lot of our viewers.
Oh, John, appreciate it. We love the show, so thank you so much. It's been an honor for Selah and I to get to know you and to be able to have this conversation today.
Yes, I know. Thank y'all for taking your time to come.
Thank you.